I'm Jess.
And I'm Karli. And this is the Only Human podcast.
I could just feel that I was like so out of alignment with myself and my values. I felt so empty. I started to feel like a shell of myself. That was so debilitating for me, like that fear of putting myself out there and just the fear of like letting people in. We have our emotional support water bottles. Yeah. Now we got the giggles.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like such a relevant topic for us right now is like stepping out of our comfort zone. And
yeah.
like literally. And as we've been talking about just the fact of stepping out of our comfort zone, like this applies to so many things in life. And it doesn't have to be like starting a podcast, but I feel like just day-to-day things, like maybe changes in our lives that we want to make and stuff, like it can be so scary to do that.
Yeah. I feel like when you are growing up, you're always forced to like try new things, whether it be like a new sport or like moving from the middle school to the high school and then moving from high school to college. And then nobody after college is like forcing you to like go out of your way to try new things, whether it's like seeking out new jobs or like new experiences or new friend groups. And so it's very easy to like fall out of practice, if that makes sense.
I never thought about it like that. Yeah. That's so true.
Once you're out of the habit, it's hard to get back in.
Yeah. And like we just get used to change, kind of like every year your teachers are different, your classmates are different, like just thinking about school specifically, because like you said, like middle school to high school, like there's a change, and I feel like that makes so much sense. But like also, why do we get so out of practice? I feel like because it's uncomfortable, but like in our youth we're kind of forced to do it, so I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm like very excited that we're talking about trying new things and like getting out of your comfort zone, all of the emotions that come with that now, because obviously we are in the thick of it. So I feel like it would make sense to kind of maybe talk about it in our case right now, of what we're experiencing in this moment, because I'm sure people are curious of what goes on behind the scenes of just like the aesthetic, like Instagram, or hopefully they're aesthetic, but Instagram posts, because there's a lot of emotions that come with it. And kind of how you referenced in the first episode, like you almost didn't start your podcast altogether because you had hesitations and you were kind of living with that idea for a really long time before it became a reality. And it's just really funny to imagine where you would be if you hadn't taken that leap and started something new. And just like, there's so many things that go into the like hesitancy. All of the different like fears and like core beliefs that exist within us that prevent us from trying new things or starting new things. And yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what we're doing now, but it's not always like as glamorous as it seems.
Literally. And there's just so much doubt, like in almost every step. And I feel like, I feel like it's pretty normal. It shouldn't be. We should have full confidence in ourselves. But I feel like it's so normal and human to just have doubt about what you like, what you dislike, and just like feelings towards certain situations.
Yeah.
And I feel like even though we're super passionate about this, like we still have doubt about if people are going to resonate with us or if this is the right thing to do. And so, yeah, I feel like talking about our specific situation is like also super interesting, because from the outside it may look a little different than it feels on the inside.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the reason that I almost said no to doing the joint podcast in the beginning. Like the thought of trying something new and putting myself out there, it just like wasn't appealing. I kind of felt like I had finally fallen into the background.
Yeah.
And was like done climbing Cringe Mountain, which is like a whole separate topic that like I can't wait to dive into today, because I think that's something else that prevents people from trying new things. And like obviously trying new things doesn't always mean putting yourself out there for the world to see, like on social media or on a stage. Like it can be you take up knitting, like, and you're just like trying a new hobby, kind of like you said a few minutes ago. It doesn't always have to be in front of other people, but I think there's different reasons behind the scenes of why people don't try new things. I mean, it takes time, right? It takes asking yourself the question, what you want to do. It takes brain capacity to like learn a new skill.
Something new.
Think about like the technology behind like editing a like to get like setting up a podcast, but then like the skills to edit it and stuff.
And also just like the feeling of not being good at something right away. Like, it's so easy to fall into the trap of like, oh, I know how to do this. I'm good at it. A job, for example, like you're there for 5 years and you're like, okay, I've got this down. Like you know, I'm able to take the reins and like I've figured this thing out. Why am I going to go do something that like I have to learn all over again?
Why is it so embarrassing to like be an adult and like make it known that you're trying? Period. Trying to look good. Like it's always like effortlessly cool, effortlessly like chic. And it's like, why does it have to be effortless? Or like if I'm knitting, like why is it embarrassing? I don't know why I'm using knitting. I've never picked up. I don't even know like what knitting is.
Maybe you just have a desire, like a deep desire to start knitting or something.
I don't think so. No. I don't think that's it.
Okay.
But like what is so embarrassing about not being good at something or making it known that you care about something? Yeah. This podcast, for example, like there's a chance that this flops. There's a chance that people are watching this and they're like, oh my God, wow, this is like the second episode. Like they seem a little stiff or a little nervous. And obviously we're sitting here with a full blown like production, really trying at something and really like letting it be known that we care about this. Why is that embarrassing? And I do feel embarrassed about it sometimes. I'm like, why do I feel that way? Yeah. But like, it's true. And I think with trying new things, you're kind of signaling to yourself or to other people that you have like an interest in something new or a desire to be good at something. And there's a potential for either judgment or failure. And I think when those factors are at play, as humans, we shy away from things like that. And if you just think about like living your life in perpetuity, like with that mindset, how boring is that? Like when you stop trying new things, that literally means you're living the same day on repeat for all the time to come. Yeah. And like that's just no way to live. Like to me, that's more scarier than putting yourself like on display.
Totally. But then with that said, going through the motions of actually trying something new is like still scary. Even though in the back of our heads we're like, okay, like we know we'd rather do this than do the same thing for the rest of our lives and not follow our passions and things like that. But like unfortunately it still doesn't make it any easier to like go through that like trial phase, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it definitely gets uncomfortable before it gets more comfortable. Like totally. I think another reason why people delay starting something new or just never start something new altogether is because it's hard in those beginning stages. Even if it's something as basic as learning a new skill, like nobody likes learning the piano for the first couple weeks or months or years. Like it's not until you feel like you like master something. And aside from that, I feel like when starting something new, people always think it's like a commitment of something they have to like carry forward for the rest of time. Like I think when we go into something, we have the mentality of like you can't be a quitter or you have to be good at this because everybody wants to be like good at something. But like why can't you try something and then decide that like you actually hate it?
Right.
And then just stop.
Yeah.
Like what a concept.
I know, right?
Like ask yourself
and
if
not
you
being
enjoy
ashamed of quitting, quote unquote. But like being like, yeah, I don't like that. Like let's find something else. Like why is that shameful? It shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I was gonna say also, like, we just put so much pressure on ourselves to like be good at something right away. Like we don't give ourselves the patience or the time, or at least I don't, to like be bad at something. And that uncomfortability is like really hard to sit with, and sometimes it like makes you feel like you don't want to put yourself out there again. Even if it's just like knitting, just trying it with yourself and being like, this is so hard, like I can't figure it out. Like that doesn't feel good sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
it also takes a lot of like brain space to be in new territory. So think about like the first 6 months at a job, like doing the most basic tasks is still like so soul sucking.
Yeah.
Because like whether you're like using a different like system than you're used to, it's just like learning a new skill it really is taxing. And so I feel like even getting over that barrier is like another hurdle. And then it's not until you're on like the other side that it actually becomes like enjoyment, talking about like that initial upfront investment period.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we're a little bit like, we look at things from like the short term point of view and we can't really like extrapolate into how gratifying it's going to be or how fulfilling it's going to be when we like reach the other side. Like luckily for us with our situation with this podcast, I feel like even the like ideation state and like the behind the scenes, like getting off the ground has been so fun. And that's because we've like been doing it together and been making the most of it. But there's been a lot of hard times too.
Yeah.
Of trying something new that, like, thank gosh we have the vision for like this mission and what this could be. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that and almost get discouraged and just like want to stop.
Yeah. And I mean, like, should we tell them about all of the no's that we've been getting?
Do we have to?
Karli and I have really big dreams.
Yeah.
And
It's a blessing.
we're
It's a
really
curse.
excited about things. And we've been getting a lot of no's in the process, like asking people to support us or to come be a guest on the podcast or just like, I don't know, different random things. Like there's a lot of no's in the process, and it's like a little, you know, you got to take it on the chin.
You do have to take it on the chin.
We're learning that.
Yeah. I mean, well, we kind of mentioned in the first episode what, like, where the name Only Human came from, and said that like the initial vision was to have celebrities on. And not gonna lie, Bobby Altoff set some unrealistic expectations, because I was like, oh, all it takes is like one yes.
Yeah.
Like you just, you know, you get somebody and then it just like the climb is like seamless from there. And yeah, that wasn't the case. So we've had to pivot. But I think you're only going to put yourself in a position to hear the word no if you're going after something. Like, imagine if we never got told no. That means we weren't asking the question.
Yeah,
like, how are
so
we
true.
ever going to reach the next level?
Yeah.
And like my favorite quote, like I've been saying this for years, if you don't ask, the answer's already no.
Yeah.
And I think just having that mentality that you're not scared of rejection, whatever facet of life it is, like with your job, asking for what you want, whether it be something as minuscule as like, I want to be put on this project, or like, I want a raise, or with a new initiative of like, I want Jelly Roll to come on this podcast. Let Jelly Roll, if you're watching this, we want you on this podcast. We love you. Like, if you're not asking people what you want out of life, how are you ever going to be given it?
It's so true. And I love just like putting yourself in a situation to where it could be a yes. You know what I mean? Like being okay with the answer being no, but like also putting yourself in a situation where like if the answer is yes, like there's a great reward there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like the other side of that. And I feel like back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier about like the internal pressures that we put on ourselves to like be good at something, and the fear of like having to be in that figuring it out stage again. But like that's one beast in itself, but then there's another beast of like the fear of other people judging you, like you kind of touched on, like why is it not cool to like try at something, and just like the fear of judgment is just so strong, and like that coupled with the pressure that we put on ourselves is like debilitating at times.
It is. Well, have you ever heard of Cringe Mountain? I know I like referenced it.
I actually,
Do you know what it is?
Someone said that to me like within the last 6 months, and I was like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that took me out
Explain
the
it.
first time. But that's
Explain
why I
it for
stopped
us.
Figured Outable, because I was like, I'm cringing at myself. I can only
Yeah.
imagine. And like, how are there so many people on TikTok? Like, just, I mean, we're one of them now with our episodes, but like you're like scrolling and scrolling, and then like you see your friends and family, and like it is a little bit uncomfortable for the
Yeah.
person watching, but then also the person, like, cringe is a real thing. And again, I think it goes back to somebody's putting themselves out there with the desire to be received, with the desire to like connect. Again, it's like, why is it so uncool to like want something or like go after something? But yeah, basically Cringe Mountain, it's like the idea is once you're climbing it, it's like painful, and it's like it's cringe until you reach like this inflection point where it's like, oh, you're actually succeeding, or like you made it, or like you had your big break, and then it's cool.
And then it's cool.
And you're on the other side
It's
of
not
it.
cringe anymore.
Right. But like typically when you're starting something new or putting yourself out there in a new way, it starts off being like really fucking cringe.
For everyone involved.
Sorry, we didn't really establish if we were going to curse on this podcast.
I think you just did. Should I like bleep it out?
No, that would be like not that true to who I am. I will do it sparingly, but I am wearing a trucker's hat, so I feel like a trucker's mouth, is only
just
fitting. But like, well, it's cringe. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like at some point you just have to get past it, because if you're living your life in like the mentality that you can't do anything that is going to solicit judgment or opinions from other people, again, going back to my previous point, like what a boring life.
Yeah. Wait, this is kind of random, but it's just making me think of like when we've had a conversation, you and I, about your decision to like quit your corporate job the first time around, or I guess it was the second time, but the really big time when you moved to Australia.
2 corporate jobs? This is news to me.
No, what do you mean it's
you
news
just said,
to you?
You just said you quit your corporate
like,
job. Oh wait, was that the first time or the second time?
No,
making me seem like a low life.
Yeah, right. You just like quit here and there. No, so you left New York and then you got a Philly job, Philly corporate job, and then you quit that and like
left
quit
finance.
The corporate life for then.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I guess I should refer to it as finance instead of corporate.
Yeah, because now I'm in consulting, so now it's like the finance life is still behind me for the time being. Who knows what the future holds? But
so, anyways, when you decided to move to Australia, you said, like, for the first time in my life, people were like, "What the fuck is Karli doing?" And like that just makes me think of this moment of like trying something new, and you like just really seemed to embrace it in that moment. I feel like you might have just been at a point where you were just like, I can't do this anymore, like this pressure and whatever. But yeah, you feel like that's kind of related to this?
I do. I think I have the personality. I get bored very easily of people, of jobs.
Oh, jeez, this is not going to last very long.
No, not like that. But like, I feel like I need to be putting myself in situations and be growing with people that are challenging me, and you do that. So this is going to be
I've been known to do that. Aunt will tell you, my husband's like, you challenge me like no other. Like,
he's
it's
like,
a blessing.
Quiet.
Like,
stop challenging me. Stop it. But I feel like, where was I even going with that? Oh yeah, like I had just reached a point where life just felt so monotonous. And it wasn't even like hard anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not like I was like being challenged in a way that I was like so burnt out. Like, you ever hear like you feel burnout sometimes not by doing too much, but by not doing enough of the things that matter to you. And that's exactly what point I was at. And so I think I just needed to like mix it up. And I was like, what is the most extreme way that I could do this? And so I landed on, going to Australia, and I wanted to do it alone, and I wanted to do something so drastically new, because I think when you do new things, you also gain new perspective. And I think it's so easy to just stay in your comfort zone and be complacent and think that that's life and that's fulfillment and that's all there is. But like literally every day is a new day to try something new, whether it's a new coffee shop, a new route to work, like a new way to like connect with a stranger. Like, there's so many opportunities for newness, and I have found personally that I'm the most inspired and happy when I'm trying new things, because it allows me to open up my eyes to different perspectives, different ways that people are doing things. So when I went to Australia, like, I made a point to put myself in a lot of like uncomfortable situations. Like, I was reaching out to people left and right, like in the health and wellness industry, to just like come and, spend time at their clinic or their gym and just like learn about what they do. And again, kind of goes back to like asking the question and putting yourself in a position that people can say no, or people can think you're like a little bit weird, but like it was so well received. And I came back from Australia months later with like such a newfound perspective of how they live life, and how like they just take the most like simple, mundane moments and like just really make them matter. And I've kind of found like more of an appreciation of like the little moments in my life. And to think that if I didn't like seek out that new experience, I would have never had like that new perspective. So like, yes, there's that element of like trying new things, but then speaking more to like the gratification and like the payout that that has down the line, like it's kind of like momentum. Like, once you get that sensation of like, wow, I put myself out there, or like I saw something in a new light, like it really does have the ability to like change the way that you think and operate on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, totally. And like you said, there's a world in which I decided not to start a podcast, and like thinking about what that would look like is it's scary at this point, you know? And I think like when you do try new things and then you look back, you're always glad that you tried it, even if you didn't like it. And then you're like, now I know, right? And I think that was so debilitating for me, like that fear of putting myself out there and just the fear of like letting people in. And like this isn't obviously in every situation of trying something new, but I like let that determine my next steps for like over a year. And I was just like at the point where I was like tired of feeling that way. And like when you have this like desire and you're just like consistently doing things against that, it's like worse for you than
oh my God,
the like feeling of the uncomfortableness of like putting yourself out there. I don't know if that made like complete sense, but just like I was thinking about starting this podcast every single day. Like there wasn't a day that I woke up and I didn't think about it for an entire year. And like the pain of that, thinking about it and not doing it was like, I decided in the end after a year, way greater than the pain of feeling like I'm afraid to put myself out there. And in the end, like, of course it's like uncomfortable, but I'm so glad that I did. And I found so many moments of like energy that I've gotten from this podcast. Like every time I'm done recording, like I feel so energetic. I feel the most myself.
Yes.
After connecting with somebody. And like, I can't say that I've felt that way in a very long time. Like I couldn't tell you the last time I felt like that, if I ever did. And it's like so exciting. And just again, to speak to that gratification of like, it just makes you want to like feel more like yourself.
It unlocks a level of happiness that you didn't know existed. And that's also something I feel so passionate about. And I got that same feeling once I started teaching Pilates. I would go home from the Pilates classes and literally be on cloud 9. And it was just a matter of like listening to your inner intuition of like where life is pulling you, and going back to like you being resistant for a year and like starting that podcast, and your body knows when you want to do something and you're not like letting yourself be pulled in that direction. It's so funny because my one friend, Lindsay, her mom, I can recall 2 times in the past couple of years that she's looked me in the eye and she's like, you look so good.
Aww.
And there's nothing different between those 2 times except for when she told me that and she was like, you're glowing. Like I was so genuinely happy and doing what I love. And I feel like people almost wear like fulfillment on their face. Like you can tell a person who is like doing something and waking up every day and doing something that they love versus somebody that's just going through the motions. And I think in society, it's like very expected to just go through the motions and do what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And once you find what you're supposed to do, very rarely do people like venture away from that and try different avenues or new things. And so I think like we're just disincentivized. And one of my questions for you is like, when you were going through that inner turmoil of whether you start your podcast or not, like what was your support system saying? Because I think that's also a big factor of like who you surround yourself with and their feedback to your hopes and dreams. It can either be like a source of encouragement or discouragement. And I think it really, really matters. And so I'm just curious, like, was Aunt, your husband, or like your parents, like what was the feedback around you?
So I think that's the funny thing too about how I'm just like naturally a private person. Like my support system was like literally Aunt, my therapist, and like my mom. And like when I was ready to like start recording, my best friend. And that was like the only people that knew. Mm-hmm. So I feel like within those people that actually knew about like my inner desire to like start the podcast, they were very supportive. But I don't think that I understood what was holding me back. And so they didn't know what was holding me back. And so they weren't able to like support me and build me up in the way that I needed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know myself. And I feel like I didn't really understand until after I started and like that process of like deciding that I'm going to do it. I think that's when I started to understand like why it was so hard for me in the first place to like actually do the thing. And I would like ask myself that all the time. Like, I think it was more surface level. Like, I didn't really ask myself the hardest questions, but I asked myself, like, why can't I just do it? You know? And I feel like a lot of my therapy sessions were just like around that. And the one day my therapist was just like, you sound like so passionate about this. And like, it really took her saying that back to me to be able to see like, yeah, no, I am. And like, that kind of really carried me through the like initial, well, it wasn't initial, but the feelings of turmoil when I started. I feel like her repeating that back to me and like telling me that I was passionate about it.
It was almost like the validation that you needed, that somebody else was like recognizing this thing that lit you up.
Totally.
And it was almost like a permission slip to like go do that thing.
Yeah, totally. And so, yeah, I think like my support system, obviously throughout the process of like putting myself out there and starting the podcast, like was amazing. And I would like to think that I could have done it without support, but I don't know that I could have, because I feel like you need some validation of like, no, you did a good job. Because like I would be like, oh my gosh, that sounded like so stupid, and they're like, no, it didn't, it sounded fine, I didn't even notice you messed up your words there or whatever. Like just those little things that like we're so hard on ourselves about. That's where I feel like the support system came in like really big for me.
Yeah, I know.
Once I decide to do something, like I'm doing it. So like once I internally decided that I was going to start the podcast, like I was going to start it no matter what. But I think like just the support to keep going was like what I really like leaned on a lot.
Yeah. And I think there's probably like different people that need different levels of support. And I too feel like I need a little bit of like encouragement and validation because it is so uncomfortable for me to put myself out there. But then I also think about the people who might not have a support system around them. And I feel like the messaging here stays the same in terms of like, it is so important to like still be going after what you want in life, because you could have such a big life that's like not even imaginable at this point. And I think it plays into like the fear of judgment and fear of opinions. We don't want to let people down around us. And I know like I definitely felt a lot of that going back to, you know, taking a pause from my corporate life. Like I had a lot of fear that like I would be disappointing specifically my parents. And obviously it's a little bit deeper than just like starting a new hobby, but like starting a new chapter of life away from the one that I knew and was like conditioned to go after. But there was like a lot of things that went into that life, whether it be like the financial investment to like put me through Penn, or even like the idea of success that I could potentially reach if I stayed on this path. It was like, well, that's what you're giving up. And so I was really scared to like give that up and then solicit all of that judgment. And I think this is where it kind of plays into like starting something new versus starting over. And we've been really focused on like the starting something new component, but I also think I almost succumbed to like the mindset that I was too far deep and that this was my path that I chose, so I had to stay on it. And like that was silly to think, because I was 25 years old 3 years into my career. But like, what about a mom who's been married for 30 years and like really wants to like start a new venture or change careers? And it's like, to think that people won't go after what they truly want deep down just because they feel that they're like too old, not in the right life circumstances, going to disappoint their spouse or their children. And I feel like that's when somebody's doing themselves the biggest disservice of them all, because they're compromising their potential. And in turn, you're never going to show up for those around you in the best way you can if you're showing up as a fraction of what you could be.
Yeah.
You know,
that's so powerful, I feel like. And I think it just makes me think about like, you're not able to care for others unless you're caring for yourself first. So whether that's in a friendship, being a parent, or being a spouse, like just in life, like you have to be your best self and you have to do things that fulfill you first to be able to like show up for others and like be the best version of yourself for them. And I think like when you reframe it like that, it is more motivating, like to say for a mom or for a spouse or something, like if I'm not being the best version of myself, then like I don't have that to share with someone else, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a very interesting like thing that we go through. And I feel like I've recently found that I didn't know that I needed to like start something new until I did. And so like, what does that feel like when you're feeling unfulfilled? Like, how would someone know that maybe they need to like try something new, or like what did that feel like in your experience? How do you like call it out and like recognize it? I feel like it usually comes in a sense of like unfulfillment or like monotony.
It's so monotonous. I was just going to say, like, I feel like I personally reached a point where I was just like living Groundhog's Day. And I was like, there, every day is the same. And I would start to daydream a lot. So I like had this journal and I would like dream up this life. And I was also watching a lot of YouTube. And I found that I was checking out of my actual life, and instead I was checking in to other people's lives, and that was my fix. So I could watch that 30-minute YouTube video, close the laptop, and feel like I had just lived a life in that a day in that person's life.
That's so interesting.
And it took me a while to be like, wait, this isn't sustainable. I'm like literally transporting myself to an alternate universe, either through my journal when I'm like dreaming up this life, or when I'm like tuning into YouTube or like a reality TV show, because I'm disassociating from like the lack of fulfillment in my own life.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I just didn't really have a level of like excitement or like inspiration. Like you talked about that feeling of like when we started this, you really get a high from it. Like it's a euphoric feeling. And I hadn't felt that in so long, and I actually forgot that it existed.
I know.
And I don't even think I was chasing that feeling again because I didn't know it existed. I was running away from the feeling of callousness and just feeling I was like a shell of a human. And I was just like, I'm bored all the time. And I was so bored of being bored. I was like, I need to spice up my life. Like, I need to switch it up.
Mix it up a little bit.
And I still find myself doing that often. Like, I jump around. Like, I lived in my apartment for a year, and then I was like, you know what? I need out. Like, I need a new, a new environment. And then I went to Charleston for a month, and like, I operate best when I'm just like constantly throwing myself in like new environments.
I think that's so important to recognize though too.
Yeah.
Because I think like, not that that's frowned upon, but I think like not being in one place or doing one thing always is just like out of the norm. But like you said, that's how you like thrive and like feel your best self. And I think it's so interesting because like to actually be able to like recognize that and lean into it is so important.
Yes, but then it also makes me scared sometimes because I'm like, am I always restless? Like, am I always going to be chasing something? And then it begs the question of like, do I just like experiencing new things, or have I yet to find like the right thing? So have I yet to find like that home or like that apartment that really feels like mine and I don't want to leave? Or like, obviously I haven't found like my person. Like, I feel like I have such high standards for the things that take up time and space in my life, whether it be people, places, opportunities. And I really only lean into things that like serve a purpose and really fulfill me. But I would say it's a blessing and a curse sometimes to always feel like I'm chasing new things, because sometimes I just want to be like content with what I have. And obviously like when it comes to like friends and family and like where I'm from, and like I feel like I'm pretty grounded in that sense, but it alarms me sometimes the pace that I need to like keep up when it comes to like novelty. And yeah, like sometimes I take a deeper look and I'm like, what does that mean about me, of like committing to one thing or like needing like to change things up so often? Yeah. And I don't have the answer to that.
Do you feel like, it sounds like, you know, I'm starting to, and it sounds like you do ask yourself the hard questions. Do you feel like that ever gets easier?
Asking yourself the hard questions?
Yeah. Like the question of like, why do I always feel like I need something new? Or why is this so scary for me to try something new? Like those kind of questions.
I think it's hard in the sense of the way that we live our lives these days. Like there's so much noise and there's so little time to be like introspective.
Yeah.
And I think we miss out on a lot because of that. I think because you and I are naturally very deep thinkers and just deep people in general, hence we're literally starting this podcast called Only Human. Like we really, really care about that stuff. So we'll ask that question to other people. Like we want to know the ins and outs of other people and understand how they work, what makes their clock tick. And I think we want the same for ourselves when we experience emotion or a feeling. We are like, where's that coming from? Why am I having that?
Yeah.
So I think it's like easy in that sense because we're wired that way. But I think it's hard because you literally need to carve out time and space in your day and in your life to sit with your thoughts and then be like reflective upon them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like as you do that and get into more practice of asking yourself, like, is this serving me? Is this something that I want to be doing, or am I just doing it just because that's the next step or things like that? I think once you get into that habit, it becomes so much easier to recognize when you're not feeling yourself or when you're not feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
You know, like getting those reps in, like it's really something that you have to like be purposeful about in the beginning. And then I feel like it becomes second nature and you learn more to trust your gut.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were always good at like starting new things? Like if you think back to when you were a child and like put in new situations, like how did you react? Or are you not good at it, but you just like make a point to muscle through it because you like have come to recognize that it's like good for you?
That is such a good question. Like thinking back, like, I don't even know. I feel like I used to be really good in new situations, and then I don't know what happened, but like somewhere in like high school to college, I like became not good at new things anymore. Like I think things became more daunting and like scary to put myself out there. Like I almost just lost that, like, I don't want to say childlike wonder, but like I just became a little bit more like serious and a little bit more like reserved and like, am I safe? Am I good? Like, what's your intention? Like very much like, I want to use the word defensive. I don't know what happened. Like I can't even come
like
up with
a protective
like
mechanism.
Yeah.
Well, they do say like to go back to your inner child. Like that's such a huge thing in therapy for a reason. And like I always use the example of when you're at like a skiing mountain and you see these like little 4-year-old kids on their skis like flying down the mountain, like absolutely no reservation. Me, I'm like going down the mountain like I'm gonna tear an ACL, like I'm gonna fall off the side of the mountain, like so apprehensive and like in my head. And I think as kids we haven't really been jaded by life or like opinions of others and judgment when just going after what we want or putting ourselves in new situations. And I feel like over time we experience, I don't want to say negative feedback, but just a little bit more of reality. And then it just becomes more of an uphill battle that you have to make a conscious effort to overcome. And it's not easy. And like, I'm just thinking about like what is categorized as like a new thing. Like when you were thinking about, or when you were just speaking about, you were really good at it as a child. And then when you were in like high school, it got a little bit more challenging. Like, can you think of like examples that you're reflecting on that are you're deeming, oh, I was good when I was a kid, but I wasn't good when I was in high school?
I think maybe not specific situations, but like I'm thinking about more of like social situations. Like you're put into like a new classroom that you don't know anybody, or like I moved to a new school when I was in second grade. Like I don't remember having difficulties like making friends or like feeling like I belonged there. Like maybe I did and I just don't remember, but or like starting a new sports team. Like I don't remember having difficulty like feeling like I belonged and could connect and things, but like as of more recent, I feel like it's not as effortless anymore. And I like wonder if like that's a me problem. Is that like because I'm not like friendly? Like, I don't know.
No,
So
I think it's probably like a function of a lot of like the core beliefs that we just pick up along the way, and like the pressure that we put on ourselves, like you said, to like excel or to like stick with something. I feel like we now have like so many other factors at play, and we're just like a little bit more mature in our thinking, which is a curse in this aspect. And so we just have, we have more real-time feedback. And I think too much feedback, whether it's internal or external, isn't necessarily a good thing. Yeah. And I think that can serve as a barrier to like actually taking the leap that you want.
Totally. And I feel like as you were saying that, I'm just thinking about like the fear of being judged becomes so much stronger and like more of a voice in the back of our head as we get older.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I would love to hear like some of your favorite ways to like try new things, or like just like the little ways that you like challenge yourself on like a Tuesday. I don't know. Like, or do you feel like trying new things does look big for you typically? Like launching a podcast. Like maybe you're good at like taking the big steps to seek newness, but like you need to work on the smaller ones.
Yeah, I feel like that's so hard. I feel like for me, trying new things, even if they're not big, they feel big. So like the thing that I can think of most recently that I like purposely like had to power through was like starting at a new gym.
Okay.
And so like a couple weeks ago, I started at this all women's boutique gym, and I was going by myself and I didn't know anybody. And like typically that's a situation where I would like have someone that I know there that I could like cling on to and like talk to, or just like go with someone. But like I was like, no, I don't like felt myself like, oh, I don't really feel like I want to go, like just like making up excuses. And like I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm gonna do something new. I'm gonna put myself out of my comfort zone because I know I'm gonna feel good about it, and it's just gonna like help me like want to do that in the future. So to answer your question, I feel like I'm good at like very little things that are new, but like anything remotely big, I think it's like a lot of social things for me is like tough, but I do like feel like a lot of things feel like a big thing.
Yeah. So maybe like the workout class, it sounds like the social component was like the biggest thing for you.
The
like
biggest barrier for me. Yeah.
And when did it switch? Like when did that like nervousness or like apprehension about walking into the workout class like switch from nerves to like gratification or like fulfillment? Like was it after the class? Left. Okay, so you were still feeling it in the moment.
Yeah.
And then when you went back the second time, like was it any better?
Yeah, like I felt so much better. Better. I feel like it's also like I think we do this as humans, but I personally do this a lot. I need to like cling to like familiarity.
Yeah, familiarity.
And so like just knowing what the building looks like, or knowing the faces that I'm probably going to see, like just those things like make me feel so much more comfortable. So in a situation where I've never seen the space before or like know who's going to be there, like that's scary to me. But then the familiarity going back, like I feel better.
I'm just sitting here thinking about both of our personality types. It's very funny because I think we're like pretty regimented and like disciplined, and I'm sitting here saying I need like a change of scenery every like 3 weeks. Like I seem like I'm like a crazy person, but I'm thinking about my day to day and I like have the same routine. Like we both thrive on familiarity, totally. But maybe that's why we've found so much value in like incorporating novelty. Because without it, like our lives would be so mundane and the same. I feel like we found the balance of like consistency with like a mix. And I feel like that's like the sweet spot, like learning yourself to know what you need.
Yeah, totally.
And like in your world, like that new workout class, like that was something that was like on top of probably a morning routine that was like a little bit familiar to you, but then like you needed a little bit of like, I don't know, something different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it feels good too when you like feel fulfilled when you do something new.
Yeah.
And like feel like you're doing something for yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked this conversation. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place, but that's just like the nature of our podcast. Like this is meant to be kind of like talk show style. I know like we purposely aren't really coming with an agenda or like a laid out outline of where these conversations are going to go, because we just so enjoy like just having deep conversations and just seeing where they take us.
Yeah, and being able to like get deep into the things that we feel like need space,
right,
and not having to like move on from a certain topic,
right,
to,
like no preset
else.
agenda.
Yeah, totally. So what's a mental health resource that you're loving this week?
This week I'm gonna say teaching Pilates in person again. Speaking of starting new things, like that was once something that was so unfamiliar to me. And I remember walking up to my first Pilates class that I was teaching in 2022, right after I quit my corporate job. And I was shaking. I was so nervous, but I was like, I know that I want to do this more than anything. And this is so scary. And I've never taught a Pilates class before. I've never identified as a Pilates instructor, but like I'm about to step in to that power and act as if I am one and have been one for years. And that's when I really think I became addicted to like doing, like trying new things, because it had been such a long time since I had done that. And so, yeah, like this past week, I'm back down the shore and I've been teaching Pilates classes, and it just reminds me like how much fulfillment I get out of that. And even though it's something I've been doing for a little while now, I feel like I haven't been doing it like super, super consistently. Like it still has that sense of novelty and challenge to it. And I still get nervous sometimes before I'm about to like teach a class, but I've just been really loving it, because not only do I get to connect with people in person, but I also just get to do what I love. And I think going back to, the whole notion that in this day and age, we're not really taught to carve out time and space to just listen to ourselves and follow our intuition of what we're feeling called to do. And I've been feeling called to be a Pilates instructor for a while. And so honoring that really makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And it's good for my mental health.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
I feel like mine is also shore related.
Okay.
I am, I say, charged by the sun.
Well,
Like,
you literally
the sun
are.
is my charger.
We're organisms too. Like people are always like,
We're
plants
humans.
need sun to grow. I'm like, but
like we do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really
makes
feel
sense.
that. I've been loving getting out in the sun, being in the sand, being by the water at the beach.
So
like
healing.
Summer is my time, and I just like, that is like when I feel the most myself and charged and happy and energized.
I remember you said this when we had met, because it was like January and you showed me a picture of something that we were talking about, and you were like, this is when I feel the most myself. I'm blonde and I'm tan.
My God,
You're like, right
blonde
now
and
I'm pasty. And like you literally made that your personality trait
That's so funny.
from day one.
No, literally. Like if you compliment me on how blonde I am or how tan I am, like the best compliments I could
Jess
ever
feels
receive.
really tan and blonde
Thank
right
you
now.
so much.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our second episode of the Only Human podcast.
See you next time.
See you next time.